The night of April 14, 1912, saw the world's most luxurious liner, the RMS Titanic, embark on its maiden voyage. Touted as unsinkable, this marvel of engineering carried over 2,200 passengers and crew, including some of the wealthiest people on Earth. But just 4 days into its journey, tragedy struck. The Titanic collided with an iceberg and in less than 3 hours, plunged to the icy depths of the North Atlantic, taking more than 1,500 lives with it. It was a disaster that shocked the world, a grim testament to the unpredictable power of nature and the hubris of human ambition. Yet, over a century later, the story of the Titanic continues to captivate us, not just for its inherent tragedy, but for the persistent shadows of doubt, the chilling coincidences, and the unresolved questions that still surround its sinking. The official narrative tells us one thing, but what if there's more to the story? What if the truth behind its demise is far more complex, perhaps even darker than the history books reveal? Prepare to re-examine the legend, because the unsinkable ship hides more secrets than just the ones at the bottom of the ocean. The Titanic's unsinkable claim was a marketing tool built on faulty engineering. While it had 16 watertight compartments, their bulkheads didn't reach the top deck. This crucial flaw meant that when the iceberg tore a 300-foot gash, flooding 6 compartments, 2 more than it could handle, water cascaded over the tops, dooming the ship. Decades later, analysis revealed the steel and particularly the rivets became brittle in freezing water, likely popping under impact and accelerating flooding. This combination of design oversight, extensive damage, and material weaknesses sealed the fate of the Titanic, turning an engineering marvel into a catastrophic failure. The sinking of the Titanic wasn't just a single event. It was a devastating culmination of missed warnings, communication failures, and questionable decisions. Throughout Sunday, April 14th, the Titanic received multiple ice warnings from other ships. The Californian, steaming just miles away, sent a strong ice warning that was reportedly cut off by the Titanic's busy wireless operators, who were overwhelmed sending passenger messages. The message was dismissed by one of the Titanic's wireless operators, Jack Phillips, as non-urgent commercial traffic. He famously told the Californian's operator to shut up when their warning interrupted his communication with Cape Race. This single interaction might have been one of the most critical failures. Later, the Californian's own wireless operator turned off his set for the night, missing the Titanic's distress calls. This meant a ship within sight, a mere 10 to 20 miles away, was completely unaware of the unfolding disaster. Compounding these failures was the speed of the Titanic. Despite warnings, the ship maintained a high speed of 22 knots, just shy of its maximum. The White Star Line encouraged fast transatlantic crossings, and the captain, Edward Smith, was known for pushing his ships. The lack of binoculars in the crow's nest, supposedly misplaced or forgotten in Southampton, further hampered lookout efforts, delaying the sighting of the iceberg by precious seconds that could have made a difference. When the iceberg was finally spotted, the ship tried to turn, but its immense size and momentum meant it couldn't maneuver quickly enough to avoid the collision entirely. The officer on the bridge, First Officer William Murdoch, ordered the engines reversed and the helm turned hard to port, a decision that has been debated for a century. Some argue that hitting the iceberg head-on might have only breached 1 or 2 compartments, allowing the ship to stay afloat, though with heavy casualties. Others believe the glancing blow spread the damage over a larger area, sealing its fate. This sequence of human errors, from dismissive communication to maintaining speed in dangerous waters, tragically amplified the consequences of the unsinkable ship meeting its icy nemesis. One of the most poignant and disturbing aspects of the Titanic disaster is the stark reality of the class divide in survival rates. The ship was a microcosm of Edwardian society, with rigid class distinctions evident in everything from cabin quality to access to lifeboats. Data paints a grim picture. 61% of first-class passengers survived, compared to 42% of second class, and a mere 25% of third class. For women, the disparity was even more pronounced. 97% of first-class women survived, compared to just 49% of third-class women. This wasn't just bad luck. It was a direct consequence of policy and design. The Women and Children First Protocol, while generally followed, was heavily influenced by location and access. First and second-class passengers had direct access to the lifeboat decks. Third-class passengers on the lower decks often had to navigate a labyrinth of corridors and locked gates to reach the upper decks. Many received orders to stay below, or were actively prevented from coming up until it was too late, purportedly to prevent panic among lower-class passengers, but effectively ensuring their demise. Stories from survivors and inquiries reveal the heartbreaking realities. Third-class men were often held back at gates until virtually all lifeboats were gone. While some crew members genuinely tried to help, the sheer chaos and the implicit biases of the era led to disproportionate losses among the poorer passengers and immigrants. The ship's design itself reinforced this social stratification. The grand staircase and lavish promenades of first class were worlds away from the cramped communal quarters of third class, physically separating them and making evacuation harder for those below. This grim data on survival rates isn't just a statistic. It's a powerful indictment of the systemic inequalities embedded even within a disaster. A stark reminder that in a crisis, social status can literally be the difference between life and death. Here's where we venture into one of the most enduring and controversial theories surrounding the Titanic. One that directly challenges the official narrative. The idea that the ship that sank wasn't actually the Titanic, but its sister ship, the Olympic, swapped at the last minute. This theory, put forth by authors like Robin Gardner, hinges on the idea that the Olympic, which had been involved in a serious collision with a British warship, the HMS Hawke, in 1911, was extensively damaged. The collision had buckled the Olympic's hull, and repairs were costly and time-consuming. Gardner argues that to avoid bankruptcy and a prolonged delay in the lucrative transatlantic schedule, White Star Line secretly swapped the two ships. The damaged Olympic was refitted with the Titanic's nameplates and interior decor, while the Titanic, a pristine ship, was kept in port or used as a source for parts. The damaged Olympic, now disguised as the Titanic, was then intentionally sent on a risky maiden voyage, possibly to be scuttled in a controlled way to claim insurance money. The argument is that the sinking was either accidental due to the damage or part of a deliberate, calculated insurance fraud gone horribly wrong. Evidence cited by proponents of this theory includes subtle differences in the ship's portholes that appear in pre-voyage photographs, discrepancies in the numbering of certain parts found on the wreck, and the unusual amount of insurance taken out on the Titanic, especially given its supposed unsinkability. They point to the fact that J.P. Morgan, the powerful financier who owned the White Star Line's parent company, canceled his trip on the Titanic at the last minute, along with several other prominent figures. While intriguing, mainstream historians and maritime experts overwhelmingly debunk this theory. They point to the vast logistical impossibility of secretly swapping two enormous, highly detailed ships in a public shipyard without hundreds of workers, inspectors, and suppliers noticing. The extensive repairs needed for the Olympic would have been far too complex and visible for a clandestine switch. Furthermore, the evidence cited, such as porthole discrepancies, has often been attributed to refits during the Olympic service or misinterpretations of photographs. The insurance coverage, while substantial, was typical for a ship of its value and the risks involved. The most compelling counterargument comes from the millions of rivets and thousands of components, each bearing identifying marks, that would have needed to be swapped or manufactured to complete such a deception without detection. While the switch theory provides a thrilling alternative to the official story, the overwhelming body of physical evidence from the wreck, coupled with the testimony of countless workers and officials, firmly identifies the ship at the bottom of the Atlantic as the Titanic, flawed in its design and doomed by a series of tragic circumstances, but undoubtedly herself. The sinking of the Titanic remains a pivotal moment in history, a disaster that transcended mere statistics to become a cultural touchstone. Its legacy is immense, shaping international maritime safety regulations, leading to the creation of the International Ice Patrol, and mandating 24-hour radio watch on ships. The tragedy forced a re-evaluation of lifeboat requirements, ensuring that enough capacity existed for all on board, a change directly born from the Titanic's dire shortage. Beyond regulations, the Titanic's story continues to fascinate. Decades after its sinking, the wreck was finally discovered in 1985 by Robert Ballard, lying in two main pieces about 2 miles below the surface. This discovery ignited a new wave of research, archaeological exploration, and public interest, allowing us to see the ship not just as a symbol, but as a tangible historical artifact. Despite extensive research, the Titanic's mystique endures with lingering questions. Was a coal fire in Boiler Room 6 a factor in weakening the hull? Why did the nearby Californian fail to respond to distress rockets? And most profoundly, what became of the thousands of personal stories and final moments of those who perished, forever shrouded in the Atlantic's depths? The Titanic remains a powerful symbol of human vulnerability, overconfidence, and an enduring story that continues to resonate. What do you think is the most compelling, untold story or unresolved question surrounding the Titanic? Does the allure of conspiracy theories overshadow the tragic reality of human error and design flaws? The debate over the Titanic's final moments and its deeper implications continues, inviting us all to reflect on the lessons learned and the mysteries that still linger in the depths. If this deep dive into the secrets of the Unsinkable has captivated your curiosity, be sure to hit the like button and share this video with fellow history buffs and mystery enthusiasts. And for more explorations into hidden histories, thought-provoking insights, and fascinating facts behind the numbers, make sure to subscribe and join our community as we continue to uncover the unexpected together.